Buckle your emotional seatbelts. Today's episode is a big one. We're talking about that survival instinct that feels like control, looks like caretaking, and burns like 3 full-time jobs. We're talking about emotional management as a survival skill. The hyper-awareness, the over-preparedness, tracking everyone's vibe, anticipating disaster, and the mentality of, if I don't monitor everything, everything will fall apart. And if you're thinking, that's not me, I'm actually very chill. Well, bless your regulated nervous system. Truly. But a lot of us, we know this script by heart. And we're tired. So let's talk about it. Welcome back to Sweet and Sour Sessions, where we unpack life's chaos and explore the stories beneath the surface of our everyday lives. I'm Erin, your host, your narrator, and your fellow human who is doing her best to make sense of the absolute circus that is emotional growth. Today's episode is called If Control Was a Sport, I'd Be an Olympian, which sounds like the most depressing way to win a medal, but I promise it's more empowering than it sounds. So let's jump in. One day, I was reflecting on emotional management and regulating my nervous system, as one does. And all of a sudden, a thought popped into my head. Actually, it was more like a banner flashing in front of me. And it read, "The scary thing still happened." The thing I worried about that played on a loop in the back of my mind. The thing I always hoped would never happen, but was secretly planning for just in case. The thing I thought I could avoid with sheer willpower, determination, and stubbornness. And let's be honest, the thing I thought I could stop from happening by trying to control every little thing in life. Yeah, that thing. It still happened. And here's the wild part. I survived. Not with confidence, and not quietly, certainly not comfortably, but I did survive it. And once I survived, my brain did what all overly responsible, over-functioning children turned adults does. It said, okay, noted. That sucked. Let's make sure that never happens again. Except there's a problem with that plan. To prevent something you can't predict, you basically have to try and control every single variable around you. The environment, the conditions, the people in it, their emotions, their reactions, their moods, their body language, even down to their daily routines and all of the choices that might fill their day. It's exhausting. Everything becomes a potential trigger to your nervous system, sending SOS signals saying, oh no, we do not want to experience that again. Avoid at all costs. And I didn't consciously decide any of this. No. This was handled behind the scenes by what I like to call the errands. If you've ever seen the Pixar movie Inside Out, that is the exact scenario I visualize for how my brain operates. I see an operating system in the center, but instead of joy, anger, and sadness at the helm of my internal command center, I envision many different versions of Erin. There's planner Erin, friend Erin, daughter Erin, adventure Erin. You get the picture. And the errands stand at that command center in my brain, knuckles cracked, headsets on, looking like some linebackers ready to charge at anything that comes at us. The control panel is lit up like a Christmas tree, ready for anything. And the errands are saying, we've got this. We'll make sure we're never caught off guard again. They mean well. They always do. But their preparedness was driven by fear. And the fear I was trying to manage, emotionally, physically, situationally, that fear stemmed from a circumstance tied to my relationship at the time. And in order to prevent that circumstance from repeating itself, I rearranged my whole world in an effort to avoid catastrophe. I tried to control every single thing about myself, the person I was with, and our relationship, believing it would keep me safe. But here's the thing. The person I was with was unpredictable, and so were any future catastrophes or traumas that might come to them again in the future. I knew that their circumstance dictated that eventually something would trigger a new event like the one I had already lived through with them. That event was at the top of the big scary things list for me, and I desperately didn't want to go through that again. And yet, I hadn't realized that the only truly guaranteed way to avoid any future repeats of the devastation from the big scary thing I never wanted to relive was to walk away from that person and that life entirely. Spoiler alert, I eventually did. But first, I had to crash, fall apart, panic. I had to have my I want my mom moment. And even after those things happened, I still wasn't in the clear emotionally. I had the first mini moment of clarity where I recognized I couldn't continue on the path that I had been on. But then what? What was I supposed to do next? And how was I supposed to sort through the jumbled mess that was my brain and all of the thoughts and emotions that were tangled up together? Imagine that internal command center engulfed in flames with all of the Erins running back and forth yelling, "Fire! Fire!" I had no clue. I had never prepared for this because the big scary thing I had planned for was not this one. I hadn't ever planned for walking away and completely upending my life. So there I was in a hotel room in Arizona, dehydrated, exhausted, running on caffeine and dread, trying to process what in the world was happening and how the heck did I get here? How did I get to a place where I couldn't put into words the why behind knowing that I couldn't stay on the path I had been on? I knew my life had to change. My body was practically screaming at me, but my mind couldn't make sense of it. So I did the only things I knew how to do: journal and call my therapist. After leaving my therapist a voicemail during one particularly awful bout of panic, it clicked. Emotional management. It had a name, it had a shape, it had a purpose. Emotional management. And the moment I named it, I finally saw it clearly. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't being dramatic. It was a lifeline, a band-aid, self-preservation dressed up as competency. It was survival. But, plot twist, it took me another 1.5 years to realize I had actually been doing emotional management my whole life. Every decade, every major relationship, every difficult person I had encountered. And it started when I was really, really young. Not because someone was bad or at fault and made me that way, but because my internal system switched into survival mode the moment it felt safety was on the line. And safety, I learned, looks different depending on the chapter of life you're in. Childhood safety, emotional tone of the room. Adult safety, avoiding devastation, avoiding chaos, avoiding the panic of knowing that something is coming and not knowing when. Next came the hard part. I had to retrain the Erins, especially Planner Erin. The queen, the commander, the one with the clipboard and the passive-aggressive post-its. The one who had beautifully orchestrated every instance of managing other people's emotions in an effort to regulate my nervous system and provide the illusion of safety. Planner Erin had been at the helm for far, far too long. So I sat her down behind a white line. Yes, literally, in my mind, this is what I saw. I have a very visual mind that imagines pictures when I think of things. So I gave her a comfy chair behind the white line, basically like a courtside seat. And I said to her, "Thank you. Truly. You kept us alive. You kept us safe. You did your job. But we're going to try something different now. You get to rest." Some days that feels easy. Some days it's like trying to keep a raccoon from driving a forklift. It's been a practice of noticing her without giving her the wheel, acknowledging her, thanking her, reminding her that we survived the scary thing once, and we're stronger now. We're more skilled, better equipped. And here's the beautiful part. It wasn't just planner Erin who survived. It was all of the Erins. Survivor Erin, think on your feet Erin, kind, stay true to yourself Erin, the Erin who kept showing up even when she was tired of showing up. It wasn't just one version of me who pulled us through. It was the whole damn team. And here's the common theme that you'll hear throughout this season. So I'm sorry for the repetition, but it's something I had to really pay attention to and learn. We are not meant to do life completely on our own. I know some of us learned that relying on others wasn't safe, or it wasn't available, or it led to disappointment, or it created more work for us in the long run. I know because I learned those things. And that's what led to that feeling that I could only be truly okay and only could feel safe if I handled everything in life by myself. That I could only be okay if I anticipated everything that might possibly go wrong and manage it ahead of time, alone. But the truth is, humans are built for community. We are meant to depend on each other. We are meant to survive together. And rewiring a brain that has experienced the opposite of that is not a weekend project. That is reconstruction, renovation, foundation repair. That is basically emotional HGTV. It takes shifts in yourself, shifts in who you surround yourself with, shifts in the environment you choose to live in. I needed all three. And once those shifts happened, I started learning and noticing so much more about myself. So much so that I woke up at 4 a.m. to go to the bathroom one night, and the entire emotional thesis of this episode downloaded itself into my brain like a software update. I had to write it down immediately or I was going to lose the whole thing to the void. Growth is wild like that. You never know when your brain is going to go, oh, that makes sense now. So what's the big takeaway? Stay open to the click. The moment something inside of you rearranges itself and suddenly the puzzle pieces fit. Awareness cracks open. A pattern reveals itself. A truth lands softly but firmly in your lap. Those moments don't come when you force them. They show up when you've made room for them. Growth requires space, attention, willingness, and sometimes a hotel room in Arizona. So that's today's session. Messy, honest, and rooted in the belief that who we were helped us survive, and who we're becoming will help us thrive. If this resonated with you, if you've ever had your own I want my mom or dad moment, if you find yourself defaulting to emotional management, or if you also have an internal panel of tiny versions of yourself running the show, just know you're not alone. You're human, and you're doing great. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Erin. This is Sweet and Sour Sessions, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.